I think we can start. So, first of all, welcome. Welcome to the European Civic Micro-Grants 2024 webinar. This is the first time that we are making this webinar, but it's not the first time that we are that we have this program. Before it was not called micro-grants or European Civic Micro-Grants. So some novelties here, and this session is being recorded and it will be made public. So if you don't want to be recorded, please keep your video off. And in the Q&A part, please state in the beginning of your question that you prefer that your question don't go public so that we can cut when we edit the video. So I will start by saying, I will start by presenting you to our agenda. I will make a very short presentation about the European Civic Forum and the European Civic Micro-Grants, and then we will give floor to the laureates, to the projects representatives, so that they can present their qualitative impact and also their preliminary results. And then we will have a Q&A and debate session in the end. First, I would like to say that in the European Civic Forum, we believe that more than just numbers, it's really vital to measure shifts in attitudes and also to assess how each activity that we promote has enhanced the willingness and capacity to engage in citizenship and in activism for a more equal, inclusive, and democratic Europe. So, in addition to this presentation, you'll gain insights to the preliminary results and activities of the 6 funded projects of this year. So, the European Civic Forum is a pan-European network. We have as members around 100 associations and NGOs across 30 European countries that range from big federations, national platforms of NGOs, which themselves unite hundreds of thousands of organizations across different sectors, but also human rights and campaigning organizations, and also smaller groups, sometimes working at community and local level. We were founded in 2005, and we have been working to protect civic space, to enable civic participation, and to build civil dialogue for a more inclusive, equal, and solidar and democratic Europe. So, at some point, we decided to create these European Civic Micro-Grants, which is part of our framework partnership agreement with the European Union, namely included in our operating grant of the SERV program, that is the Citizens Equality, Rights and Values program of the European Union. And as such, we have the possibility to re-grant, which is distribute grants to provide small-scale financial support to our member organizations, like these civic groups, local initiatives, and movements across, unfortunately, only the European Union. We have members from the EU and also outside of the EU, but unfortunately, the European Union only allows us to grant to European Union members, to organizations in European Union member states. With this, our aim is to provide a flexible response and to strengthen the capacity of our member organizations in responding to societal and political challenges. But also, we aim to build and sustain constitutions, constituencies, and engage in European network building and policies. I would like to say that the total amount that we are providing now, it's 50,000 euros, 10,000 euros max per project, and we don't request any co-funding. So our micro grantees have a funding rate of 100%. We, the European Civic Forum, are the responsibles for this co-funding because, in fact, the EU asks us to co-fund these projects. But the idea is to have a very flexible response to strengthen the capacity of our member organizations. The priorities of the micro grants are processes towards strengthening of democracy and civic participation, namely through campaigning, advocacy, and bridge building between civil society organizations, political parties, trade unions, EU institutions, and I would like also to add with also grassroots organizations, because many of our member organizations also work in the field with social movements and grassroots. Also, to do strategic litigation, to do rapid alert and crisis response, and psychological support and safety, peer learning and training, capacity building, and strategy and foresight. Basically, we try to allow our micro grantees to do things that normally they would not be able to do, and even things that the European funds sometimes don't allow to do because they're not so flexible. So what we support the European dimension of the activities of our national and local organizations, namely through capacity and alliance building and engaging with European policy processes, for instance, but not only, the rule of law annual assessment. And also the reaching out to community groups, sometimes informal, social movements, to capture and articulate their demands or to build their capacities and expertise on specific issues and needs related to European policies. We also support organizations that are facing acute or unpredictable external circumstances and need to organize action in response, such as litigation, legal expertise, advocacy, and campaigning. So let's go to let's give the floor to our selected grantees, and I would like to ask from La Ligue de l'Enseignement if,
Yes.
yeah, exactly. Antonin, please.
I share my screen. Can you see the PowerPoint?
Yes.
All right. Then. So, hello everybody. I'm really pleased to introduce you our project or conference about the decline of freedom and democracy in Europe, which was held with the help of the European Civic Forum and the micro-grants. I'm Antonin Robert, and I'm project manager by the Ligue de l'Enseignement in Paris for Franco-German and European project. I will just introduce in a few words the Ligue de l'Enseignement, because maybe it's not so clear for everyone what it is for an organization. The Ligue de l'Enseignement is a big organization created in France in 1866 which promotes popular education, which means we use active methods not to educate the people, that's not the target, but to give them the keys to understand the world, to understand politics, and to become active in the society. And this popular education concerns all domains of non-formal education, but also concerns the whole French territory, because we have more than 100 local federation for each department in France, and with a total of more than 20,000 members association. I'm working in Paris by the Confederation, and we are really working for our local federations and associations. We are here to support them in their activities. So that's an important local network, but also international. And for example, we are a member from the European Civic Forum, and we work a lot with Alexandrina, also your Secretary General, Joao, who works also sometimes in the league. So that's an important network, and we have a really good occasion everywhere to discuss with this network our political priorities. It's called Université de Rentrée. I would say summer school. I couldn't find a really good translation, but like a summer school for the league. And I said that's a really good occasion because we had, for example, this year more than 200 participants. So from the national level, members of the as a board members, and also a local federation, 61 federation. So it means that's a really good occasion to spread some information and also to discuss this political priorities. For example, we had some activities on preservation of environment, education to medias, and also one important point dedicated to Europe. So that was a round table, a conference with members of the panels who I'm going to introduce you. And we had like two steps. A first step was like a report, findings. So what's the situation in the represented countries? So what are the main threats to democracy and civil liberties in the various countries? So in our case, Poland, Spain, and also Italy. And what is the link with the importance of the far right? That's also an important question for France, for us, because that was just after the legislative election in France. And as you know, the far right party in France get always more and more importance in the civic, in the political space. That's also important for us to hear how the other country managed to face this growing importance of the far right. And that's the second step. So first step, findings. Second step, solutions. So how has the civil society responded to defend civil liberties, and has the difficult context encouraged cooperation with other players at national or European international level? So to answer these questions, so we had first a small introduction from Martine Besson, our Deputy Vice President, who made the link with political situation in France, because that's a national event, and that was important for us to explain the people why we are going to speak about Europe and which interest it has concretely in the national but also European activities, because a lot of our partners are working at the European level. I would like also to really thank Alexandrina Najmovic, so your General Secretary, who was really from a great help to contact the members of the panel discussion. Because European Civic Forum is a really great platform to get contacts, to exchange with other European partners about common problems and solutions. So first countries represented, Poland.
Sorry, Antonia, we are just, maybe it's supposed, but we are just watching the first slide.
No.
We are seeing the PowerPoint dashboard and not the presentation itself. So maybe you need to share the other screen. Okay, now we see it.
Because okay. You see it now?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I believe you could see it. So decline of freedom and democracy in Europe. That was a small presentation about the league that I believe you could see. I say promoting popular education, which with an important national and international network. Our main event this summer school, which is a really good occasion to discuss our political priorities. And let's make a few resume in a few seconds. And so the first step was the report, the findings of, so what's the situation in every country? So yeah, what are the main threats to democracy and civil liberties in the various countries? What is the link with the importance of far right? I said, which is an important topic for France, but also for the other European countries. And second step, the solution. Which solution could be found by the other partners, or could the civil society respond to defend the civil liberties? And if maybe this context encourage cooperation with other players at national and international level. You can see it now. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So we had an introduction from Martin Messon, as said, our deputy vice president. And we had also a great help from Alexandrina Najdovic. She should be here, but unfortunately she was ill, but she was, whoever, a really, really great help. For representing Poland, so we had the pleasure to welcome Karolina Drezer-Smalek, who is president of the National Federation of Polish NGOs and vice president also of the European Civic Forum. So she could tell us more about the past situation in Poland with the rise of the Peace Party, and how they could manage to find solutions to fight against them. So, for example, to work with syndicates, to work also with political parties and asking them to sign like a mutual acknowledgement that they are democratic parties and not peace. And also she explains that the European Civic Forum and other European platforms are really helpful to not feel alone in this fight, and that is it gives more motivation to fight extreme right, but also the democratic backslidings, which were quite problematic in Poland. That was very interesting. I see we have also someone from Novak today, but we had the pleasure to welcome also Lucille Maybaum, mais bon, Maghreb Regional Coordinator at Novact. So she's specialized about the question with Maghreb, but she had also a really interesting view on the political situation in Spain, and also its impact with the relation with the rest of Europe and the world. It was really interesting for us because, in France, we know that the Spanish Prime Minister is like socialist. So maybe with this also, let's say, a social dimension of politics. But we didn't have in mind, for a lot of us, that the regional governments were so important. And she explained that far-right parties were really important at the local stage, and that they can have also a lot of importance by agenda setting, and not only the central government, as it would be the case in France. And also explain how important it is to professionalize activists. For example, to get lawyers to be active in a more effectively way. And Gianluca Mengosi from ARCI was also here, so coordinator of international relations and member of the board of directors of ARCI. His testimony was very also interesting because he told us more about the situation with Giorgia Meloni, and that may be the first step and the most important step that we sometimes forgot, is that to fight democratic backslidings, and also the importance of far-right parties is to understand why people are voting for these parties, and to fight and to encounter these causes, the origin of the vote. If there are some social problems, that maybe to work on these social difficulties, to help the people to manage it, and maybe not to be and so that the far extreme right would not be so attractive. So in our project, we had the following targets. First, to reinforce mutual learning and cooperation between NGOs at the European level. So that was the case here, because that was for us the opportunity to work with Polish, Italian, and Spanish partners, and also for them to discover more or less the league. I say more or less because some were already aware about the work on the league, but we propose to everyone to stay for a few days to also attend to other conferences organized by the league. And for example, that was the case of Gianluca Mengosi. That was really interesting to have his point of view on other topics also. To strengthen the EU dimension of our work by adding an EU dimension in one of our main national events. So that was also fulfilled, because that was in plenary session, all people were here, we spoke about Europe, and also about democratic backsliding. I think that was an important need, because just after the European elections, after the legislative elections, so there was also a need to hear about it, but also to discuss about it, because they could also ask their question at the end, and to also discover other way to be active that maybe are not so developed in France or in our local associations. The third target was also to make our network more aware about the EU topics and stakes by sharing a picture of political situation following national European elections. That's what I said. And also to raise awareness on the attacks on democracy and civil societies in Europe. For example, at personal point of view, I was aware about what happened in Poland. About Italy, that's quite newer, so I had an idea, but not so concrete, so that was interesting. But for Spain, for example, I said, I didn't know that it was so the far-right party were so important at the local stage. That was really helpful. And so now we are coming to the testimonials, which are written. I have 3 written and 1 audio, but I think, Joao, looking at the time, maybe for the audio it will be a bit short, so that you can keep your time. So first testimony from Sarah Garrido, who is working also at the League as head of the Social and Solidarity Economies Department at La Ligue. I was very interested to hear the discussions and what the speakers had to say at the round table on freedoms and democratic backslidings in Europe. On a personal level, it enabled me to connect with the realities experienced by people in Poland, Italy, and Spain. We may see certain realities through various media, but this type of exchange with speakers from these countries is essential. From a professional point of view, these exchanges, both on the facts and on the levels, have enabled me to integrate a European angle with the members of our movement on social and solidarity economy issues to support our members in their efforts to get involved in the next World Social and Solidarity Economies Forum to defend the ECC, but also the associative freedoms. This event, which will take place in Bordeaux in 2025, will bring together people from all over the world, including those from European Union countries. We want to strengthen our ties on this issue at European level, which is why la Ligue de l'Enseignement and the Union Régionale de Nouvelle-Aquitaine, the Ligue de l'Enseignement, are joining forces on project run by the Nouvelle-Aquitaine region with other French and European players, Italy, Poland, Belgium, to work on developing an advocacy method in order to produce a youth advocacy with young people from these countries at this international meeting. And so they will see next year if they get the subvention. So here, I found the testimonial very interesting because it shows how the link are made between the different departments and activities from the league, and also with the local partners. The second testimony from Martine Besson, Deputy Vice President of the Ligue de l'Enseignement. The summer school of the Ligue de l'Enseignement is a meeting place which over the years has been able to strengthen its militant dimension in the roundtables and workshops it offers to its network, employees, and elected representatives. These are times for exchange, training, and conviviality. They address current issues and the direction our movement is taking, as well as the key questions facing the society in which we live. Experts also contribute their expertise. The European question is a logical part of the summer school, and particularly so in the wake of the European election 2024, which further underlines the democratic crisis we are experiencing and the decline in civic and associative freedoms in France, as in many other EU countries. The strong testimonies of our partners and friends from Poland, Italy, and Spain are linked within the European Civic Forum, had a particularly strong impact on our associative actors by illustrating in a concrete way the obstacles to the exercise of their citizenships, the impediments to actions, but also the battles waged. They showed us that victories are possible on women's rights, for example, and that priorities converge, particularly in the fight against extreme right-wing ideas, which are so contrary to our humanist values. These exchanges have also nourished our sense of belonging to Europe and our desire to continue to act together, to strengthen our alliances, and to build joint events through cultural actions and advocacy. The Ligue de l'Enseignement, a popular education movement, will continue to share and contribute to the project of a social, ecological, and solidarity-based Europe so that citizens can exercise their civic rights and take their future into their own hands on this scale too. So we'll continue to meet up with determination to action and the pleasure of getting together. And
So
as for the last one, I can send it to you because I saw that we are already by 20 minutes.
exactly. So in the end, we will share these contents also with the people that registered. So people will also have the opportunity to to go through the rest of the testimonials. Thank you very much, Antona. And I will give the floor to Novak to Asier. Asier.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. Buen día.
Buenos días. I want to apologize because I'm getting out of flu, so maybe I'm not 100%, but I will try to do it the best as possible. And I want to apologize because I had no time to prepare a proper presentation with a PPT. So sorry for that, but I will try if Zoom allows me to share two short videos as visual testimonies of the project that we have implemented thanks to the microgrant by ECF. I will apologize too because I will read my presentation. I hope that it will be not super boring. So first of all, yes, I would like to thank the Civic Forum and these microgrants for helping us to achieve all the goals planned for this project and even go beyond our initial expectations in terms of participation, diversity, geographical diversity, and impact. The project supported by this microgrant is called the Nonviolence Factory. It's a human rights defenders training school held this year was the second edition. Is holding in Barcelona, and is focused on promoting strategies to confront authoritarianism and defend human rights and democracy in the Euro-Mediterranean region. As I have said, we held this last November the second edition of this school for human rights defenders. The project aims at generating a better response to the authoritarian wave in Europe and the Mediterranean region, and ultimately move from merely confronting the shrinking of civic space to re-envisioning a new ecosystem with the capacity to take action and transform the future. The Nonviolence Factory is organized by NOACT, by NOACT Institute of Nonviolence, but always in collaboration with leading human rights organizations and civil resistance movements. And in this edition, we have had the privilege of counting with the Civic Forum as co-host of the Nonviolence Factory, a collaboration that we hope will continue in future editions of the school. TNF, the Nonviolence Factory, connects and provides joint-generated resources to movement builders, frontline community organizers, human rights defenders, public sector actors, or democracy advocates working in diverse geographic and cultural contexts. For this, the school proposes a comprehensive training program with a theoretical framework on nonviolent action. This year, last November, we focused on the impact of mass surveillance on the civic space, how mass surveillance and the use of new technologies are used to control civil society and shrink human rights defenders' work. This training program aims to strengthen the capacity of civil society organizations and human rights defenders to respond to the increasingly repressive and securitized environment that threatens their legitimacy and security. Additionally, the program seeks to foster synergies among the actors working to protect civic space at the European Union level and the Mediterranean neighboring countries. By the way, I will try to do my presentation the shortest as possible. I hope not to reach more than 15 minutes, 10-15 minutes. Okay, regarding the preliminary results of the action, it's true that we have ended this. The non-violence factory was held between the 10th, 11th of November and the 15th of the same month. So we are still working on the results, the evaluation, etc. But we can assure that thanks to the support of this microgrant from the European Civic Forum, we have been able to reach more people from more countries than in the previous edition, fostering new synergies among human rights defenders from the Mediterranean region and Europe. Namely, we extended the second edition of the Non-Violence Factory by adding 2 more days, from 3 training days in the last year edition to 5 training days in 2024. The number of participants increased from an average of 50 per day last year to 90 per day this year. In 2023, the Non-Violence Factory participants represented around 10 countries from Europe and the Mediterranean region, and this year nearly 20 countries were represented, including from the MENA region, Palestine, Iraq, Kurdistan, Syria, Jordan, Western Sahara, Algeria, or Tunisia, and from Europe, Italy, Belgium, France, Portugal, Slovenia, Poland, Spain, etc. With regard to the contents of the Non-Violence Factory, this year's Non-Violence Factory, the training agenda was delivered through a combination of presentations, breakout sessions, and open debates. Topics included authoritarianism and emotions, case studies, and seminars on nonviolent resistance in different countries of the MENA region, behavioral change, nonviolence, and collective power, etc. Now I will try to share the first of the videos. We'll see.
Please don't forget to click on the share the audio to be on
true.
the right.
It's been a long time since I don't use the okay, compartir pantalla. Okay, perfect. So this I hope that you are seeing this small presentation.
Yeah.
These images reflect some moments of the morning of the 4th day of the Non-Violence Factory, which were hosted precisely by the Civic Forum, which hosted the European Civic Academy, featuring roundtables on surveillance, capitalism, and security politics in the European Mediterranean political landscape, and a group discussion on collective, liberated, and democratic visions on strategies for security politics and technology. The school, I will stop sharing now. Okay. The school tried to blend these more formal training methodologies and spaces with other more informal opportunities for connection and exchange, including non-compulsory yoga sessions at the beginning of each morning of the school, or as a harrowing sit-in. We tried to mount a tent in the space we were working, but it was raining and it was impossible, but we did it indoor, and there was tea, music, dancing, and debates about the situation of the Western Sahara people, cultural resistance, etc. In the space of the school, there was an exhibition on historical memory in Spain, exploring the parallels between Spain's authoritarian past under Francoism and the rise of far-right movements in contemporary society, as the previous presenter was speaking about, the importance of the rise of the far-right in Spain too. And we tried to open the school, the Nomelens factory, to the town of Barcelona, because we were holding the whole activities, the program in a town very close to Barcelona, El Prat de Llobregat, but it's not the center of Barcelona. So we moved the school in 2 moments of the week to Barcelona. One of the days, one of the afternoons, evenings, we have a public presentation on anti-racism by one of our lecturers, who was John A. Powell from the Other Belonging organization from Berkeley. And there was a visit to the Catalan Parliament by the entire TNF delegation, around 90 people, for the presentation of the report Protecting Civic Space Against Mass Surveillance in the Euro-Mediterranean region. Throughout the 5 days of the school, we aim to generate a protective space, and among other strategies, a specialized organization was available to provide psychosocial counseling to all participants. Okay, and regarding testimonials, we are still systematizing even gathering the evaluations from the participants, but we wanted to share another short video only to show the last dynamic of the school, which was held on the morning of Friday 15th, I think, of November, which was to create, I will share, I think it's this one. No, sorry. Sorry, I will try again. Okay. These images, this short video captures this final dynamic that I was speaking about, which seek or aim at showcasing participants' impressions of how they arrived at the school, what they did bring to the school, and what they did took away from 5 days of networking and exchange. They tried to create, or they finally created these threads, this wool web that you are starting to see. And looking at these images, I would like to conclude this presentation with some key insights taken from the evaluations that we are working on in this moment, still to be properly systematized. The videos are raw materials too, so we will work on them in order to have a proper dissemination material in the next future. So I will end with these ideas taken from the evaluations. For example, the potential of the nonviolence factor in networking opportunities, which enables connections with offenders from different countries and regions. Someone gives a positive evaluation about the structure of the training sessions, which was highly impactful, very well thought out and effectively implemented. Spaces were designed to foster dynamic networking opportunities, dynamic and engaging facilitation that perfectly matched the spirit of the events, or some people spoke about the informal spaces, such as the Sahrawi sit-in or the visit to the parliament, which added a more tangible and practical dimension to the meeting. Some people underlined the welcoming of children, the welcoming children's presence during the school, because some children were present with their parents during the school, which provide a kind of intergenerational perspective to the school. Thank you.
Thank you very much, especially for not taking the whole 20 minutes. Thank you, Azier. So now I would like to invite from Civic Alliance Latvia, I think it's Elena.
Yeah, hi. I hope you can hear me.
Yes,
Great.
welcome.
I will share my screen. Now, hopefully you see the presentation. This is the time where I will stop seeing any of you and only the presentation. So if something is wrong or if some slides are not changing, please do let me know. Otherwise, I'll be talking to myself a bit. Yeah. Hi. So my name is Lina, and I'm from the organization Civic Alliance Latvia. And thanks to the European Civic Forum, we could realize this project in which we assess the civic space and the rule of law in Latvia. And maybe to give a little bit of context on why we were doing this, I also would like to introduce my organization.
We can hear you.
You can't hear me?
Now I can.
No, you can. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, we are now on this slide it says 19 years, but in January we're going to celebrate our 20th birthday. So we are approximately 20 years old, and we are the main umbrella organization of civil society organizations in Latvia. And we have quite some members, around 140 organizations, which work in kind of many different fields, which are either working with marginalized groups or working with climate issues, working with education, health, kind of quite a broad range. And we also don't only have NGOs as members, but also some other stakeholders. And in terms of kind of regional representation, we also try to have members from all regions of Latvia, of course, a bit more from the kind of capital area, but we try to be also kind of represent the geographic areas. And here on the right, we just see some of our main kind of actions. So what do we do as Civic Alliance Latvia? So as this umbrella organization, our main kind of aim is to create an enabling environment for the civil society and for NGOs. So it's both in terms of regulatory environment. So none of the laws are restricting NGO work, and kind of that it's easy for NGOs to participate, but also then in the physical environment, so that NGOs have spaces to work, they can have financing to do their work, and all of that. Yeah, so of course, one of our main priorities is civil dialogue to foster between the civil society and decision makers, so that decisions are transparent, so that the society is involved and the decision making is participatory. And for that to work, we not only work with decision makers, but also with civil society itself to kind of increase capacity, so NGOs can do that, so they have finance to do that, so they know and know how to do it and are equipped to do it. And we also work with kind of the sector itself, that we promote some values in NGOs in Latvia. And yeah, so all in all, we try to make the civil society in Latvia stronger and promote civil dialogue. So this is like a little introduction. And my work in this organization is advocacy, which is why also for me this project was very, very important, but I'll tell you about that a little bit later. A little bit about what do I have to tell you in these 15 to 20 minutes. I already tricked you into the introduction of our organization, but yeah, our main project was assessing the civic space in Latvia, and I'll tell you why exactly we chose to do it, how exactly we measured the civic space, what are our preliminary findings, and I'll make an emphasis on preliminary because we're kind of also in the last stages of this project, so I cannot already present you with the whole impact, but I'll try my best to already tell you what we have so far. And at the end, based on our assessment of civic space in Latvia, we also have some preliminary recommendations. And yeah, without further ado, I'll go straight into the main information about the project. Previously, we had this monitoring system of civil society organizations and civic space in Latvia. Probably many of you have already heard about this civil society organization sustainability index, which also had some indicators about civic space, but unfortunately it stopped in 2021. So there was this gap of how do we actually monitor and measure civic space in Latvia, and there was no kind of single institution doing this. Of course, as many of you know, there's every now and then these other types of reports, such as the Commission Rule of Law report. Also, Fundamental Rights Agency is doing reporting on it, but it was not, let's say, really comprehensive specifically about Latvia, and kind of also it was produced by more state agencies than the NGO sector or civil society sector itself. So because of all of this, we decided that it would be really crucial for someone to keep track every year what is happening in the civic space in Latvia and how are civil society organizations doing. And that's also why we saw our role as Civic Alliance Latvia to create this assessment and later also the report. And throughout the whole project, we had kind of many objectives, but the first one, and I'll go in also in the order how we also did all of these. First, we had to adapt and actually develop some sort of methodology that would be very comprehensive to the Latvian context, and that would be that we could validate it and repeat it every year. Then we had to develop a specific data collection and analysis process, again, so that we could replicate it every year, and this would be this kind of central, credible way of measuring civic space in Latvia. Maybe sounds a bit simple in these words, but it's very difficult to kind of think about all of this and actually make it so that it's of high quality. Then after making the methodology and data gathering, we actually had to make the assessment of civil society landscape in Latvia using this methodology that we made. Then based on this assessment, we are currently developing recommendations for specific stakeholders in Latvia to improve the situation of civil society organizations in civic space. And then we after these recommendations, we're also going to facilitate collaboration and cooperation between different stakeholders so that actually these recommendations are taken into account. And maybe that's actually one of our most important long-term impacts of this project is that we, as the quite like the umbrella advocacy organization for NGOs in Latvia, we of course are going to continue more monitoring what is happening in civic space. Where do we see improvements? Where do we see decline or backsliding of democracy? And how can we also are going to advocate for these? So this is just the beginning. This is our pilot year. So bear with me, I'll try to explain you the methodology and the assessments we did. But yeah, I wanted to stress that the long-term impacts are only going to be reproduced every year that we continue monitoring it and do advocacy based on these results that we get yearly. Yeah, so to kind of conceptualize all the things that we did in specific deliverables, of course, we are still in the process of making the report that is our civic space report, which includes also the methodology and data collection that I mentioned previously, but also developing this methodology and collecting this data from all agencies was also kind of a learning process on its own, to think of high quality ways how we can actually look at civic space. Then, as I mentioned, we're also going to do advocacy based on the results that we get, and also kind of mobilize other civil society organizations to know about the situation of civil society in Latvia, and then also advocate. And lastly, of course, throughout this whole project, the topic of civic space has been increased in our communication, and therefore also in the public discourse, and other organizations that work on or are interested in topics of civic space. So this is kind of, to show the main outcomes. And now moving into how exactly did we measure civic space, and what were our main criteria. We did develop the methodology based on kind of the best practices of previously made civic space reports. And this is how we developed the 7 key areas. So we have freedom of association. So in general, how easy or difficult is it to found an association or foundation? What is the regulatory environment for NGOs, and when I say NGOs, I mean associations and foundations, to do their work? Are there any restrictions? Are specific topic NGOs restricted, or specific persons restricted who want to register NGOs? Then we had freedom of expression, both in kind of physical but also digital world. That's very important nowadays. We had freedom of peaceful assembly, which is on there we asked for data with many agencies that was regarding protests, organizing protests, submitting proposals for protests, and how many of these were approved or not approved, and what were the reasons for approving, not approving these protests. Then we had participation in decision making. So in a broadest sense, to what extent are NGOs and civil society activists participating in decision making, both municipal, state, and EU level. Then we had resilience and capacity of CSOs, which is in the broadest sense, what capacities do NGOs have to do their work? Are they lacking something? What could be improved? Then the public image of civil society, also digital and media, and the kind of communications image of the civil society sector and NGOs. And then we had CSO as access to finance. So to what extent are NGOs having or not having enough finance to do their activities? And these were the 7 kind of key large areas that also had specific sub-criteria. And what we did is we measured all of these 7 domains in 2 kind of in 2 different indicators, and one, or maybe I should say categories. So one category was the legal framework. So in all of these 7 that I mentioned, what is the legal framework? What are the laws? Have any laws changed in regarding these categories? And the other one was practice. So even though if there's some law in place, or the law has been changed for the worse or for the better, what is the actual practice, and how is the civil society impacted? And then at the end, each of these we measured on a 7-point scale, where kind of if things hadn't changed comparing to the last year, then the evaluation was 4, so kind of neutral situation. If things had gone for the worse, so if the situation had declined and the civil society was in a worse off situation, then it was lower, so more closer to 1, which would be the extreme negative situation. And then higher than, so between 4 and 7, higher than 4, this would be that civil society has somehow changed for the better, that there's been some positive improvements and positive changes. And then 7 would be kind of the best ideal democracy score that we could possibly imagine. And here a bit more, after developing this scale and these 7 categories, how did we actually gather data? And these were the data that we gathered were kind of composed of 4 main sources. So first we did kind of extensive desk research, where we looked at, okay, what are actually laws that have changed this year? What are the kind of news articles saying, or what is any other information that we can access that has specifically changed civil society or civic space this year? Then we had we collected data from state agencies that were relating to NGOs and their work. Then we distributed a stakeholder survey where we also asked to kind of evaluate all of these 7 categories, and we sent it to NGOs, researchers, policymakers, also kind of to represent a broad range of opinions, not only from the civil society organization sector itself. And lastly, we had a focus group discussion, which is something you can see in the picture on the right, which is, we had both in-person and online people participating, which we called experts in civic space, because these were mostly civil society organization people who work in civil society organizations who have quite a broad view on civic space in Latvia, because they were also we tried to, of course, have this expert panel diverse to also represent people from various sectors, various regions of Latvia, working with different groups of society, so that the kind of perspectives could be as broad as possible. And at the end, after having these developed the methodology, the 7 main categories, the gathering all the data from surveys, from focus group, from the secondary data, our preliminary findings that are still a work in progress. So I am not presenting you the official findings. This is kind of the first preliminary findings that we can say is that this last year, 2024, in Latvia has not had significant changes to the worse or toward the better. So we're kind of close to number 4, which is the midpoint, which is on one hand good, or on the other hand maybe not so good. But the categories that we saw where the situation had changed for the worst were freedom of expression and CSO access to finance. And I'll go a little bit more in depth about these 2, because of course these are very concerning, but also we see in other parts of Europe. So relating to freedom of expression, this is something that we got a lot, not only in the survey, but also in the expert panel, that people are quite worried about the hate speech increasing, both especially in the digital environment, actually so many social media platforms, and we see a lot of polarization of society, and this is also not only in general but often specifically targeted at the organizations or civil society activists. So this is quite a concerning finding. And the other one that had the kind of the worst score was CSO access to finance, because here I have a little kind of snippet of our data collection, but what we see here is the purple bar represents NGO revenue from 2023, and the gray bar is from 2022. So by just looking at this, you would think that actually in 2023, the revenue that the NGOs have is increasing, at least in some of these areas. But then on the right, we see the number of associations and foundations that actually have access to these finances. And here we see that from 2019 to 2023, there's actually been quite a rapid decrease in organizations that actually get this finance. So even though the net number of revenue is increasing, the NGOs who actually can access this finance is decreasing. And this graph has not been adjusted to inflation. So that's also tells you a bit about the situation in Latvia. And a bit more qualitatively, we had how can we kind of explain this decreasing score of access to finance, is that in the last year we have, I will not maybe go specifically in details about the Latvian context, but we've had, of course, the Active Citizens Fund program has ended, so therefore this year is quite a gap in Latvian NGO access to funding in general, and this year was also evaluated as worse compared to other years when NGOs could participate more in decision making about where to allocate finance. And we have some other kind of specific Latvian laws that have negatively, unfortunately, impacted Latvian NGO access to finance, and therefore this is quite concerning, as if NGOs do not have access to resources, they cannot do their work properly and help their communities. And
2 minutes.
2 minutes. All right, then this is my last slide where I wanted to quickly just to go over some of the recommendations that we have that are stemming from our findings is that, stakeholders need to improve the regulation of digital environment and artificial intelligence to kind of counter this hate speech and attacks in the digital environment. We also need to improve the civil dialogue, so the communication between decision makers and civil society. Then we also need non-discriminatory access to financial mechanisms, because often in Latvia, some EU regulations get interpreted in such a way that NGOs cannot access that financing anymore. And relating to this declining access to funding, we also need new funding programs or expand existing funding programs so that the NGOs can have the resources to do and fulfill their work. I will end this presentation here. I will just say once again that these are only the preliminary findings that we have now, but we're still working on data analysis and results. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them later. And this is it from my side. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lina. And I give the floor to Maria from Human Rights Cities Network.
Yeah, good morning. Just a second, I will share my screen. Here it is. Okay. Yes, can you see it?
Yes.
Great. Yeah, so the project that we implemented thanks to the support of the ECF Micro-Grant is the Civic Action for Rights and Equality in Cities. Before going to the presentation of the project, I just want to say a few words about the Human Rights Cities Network. We are an organization that is based in Belgium but works on a European level. And our vision is to turn human rights into reality for everyone, and by doing so, foster inclusive democracy and social justice at the city level. So mainly, like, our mission is to work to support cities to in their process to become human rights cities, as also to favor the exchange between already existing human rights cities and cities that would like to become one. We do this through the creation of synergies, the expansion and the dissemination of knowledge about human rights in cities and human rights cities, facilitating dialogue, providing learning capacities, and advocating for human rights agenda from the global to the local level. As you understand, we work mainly with cities of different dimensions, and we focus mainly on monitoring and on defining a system to monitor human rights at the local level in a, let's say, participatory way. So involving both municipalities and civil society organizations and academic institutions. So the Caring Cities project has been designed as a preparatory project for the implementation of a bigger project that is also funded through the SURA-SERV fund. That is called Decide, and that will work for the following 2 years with a group of 10 cities to co-develop and co-design a system of to monitor human rights in the cities. So the Caring Cities project comes before this bigger project and has a general objective to strengthen cities' democracy with civic participation in the monitoring of human rights progress in public policies and services delivery in EU cities, and particularly to improve cooperation within and among 2 European cities, that were Ghent and Padua, to enhance human rights monitoring in the fields of social services and social inclusion. So as I mentioned, we worked with 2 cities in this, like, around 6 months. So Ghent in Belgium and Padua in Italy. And from each city, we involved different actors, in particular civil society organizations that were identified through an open call. municipalities, meaning mainly social services and human rights departments, as well as some like international cooperation departments sometimes, or different municipal officials, and some academic researchers from the local university centers for human rights in the two cities. And as I mentioned before, the main focus in this case was about social services and inclusion. That is, seeing how much citizens and people can actually access human rights in their access to social services and inclusion services and policies. The main activities of the project were a training that a delegation from both cities met in Padua, and we had a training on human rights and monitoring, where we presented both the EU Charter of Fundamental Rights and the United Nations methodology for monitoring human rights, and also monitoring tools such as like the result framework and some specific monitoring tools. And then we added another session about the introduction to human rights and human rights principles, exactly because we noticed that there was a need to reinforce and a common knowledge about what do we mean in the international framework when we actually talk about human rights and human rights principles. Then the second activity was the civic labs that were sets of 6 workshops that we held at the city level. So there were 3 workshops in each city, where participants could discuss on the structuring of a collaborative monitoring system. And in particular, we had one meeting only for civil society organizations and academic researchers, one meeting only for municipal officers, and then the third meeting bringing together all the actors. And the objective was to discuss with them the challenges that they see at their local level to implement the methodology that we propose to design this monitoring system for human rights, and what are the challenges for the collaboration and the effective collaboration among all these different actors, and to try together to find possible solutions and to start drafting some recommendations in this sense. And then the third main activity was the mutual learning workshop, where we met again in presence with a delegation from the 2 cities. This time we met in Ghent. And it was an opportunity for an exchange between the 2 cities and their experience with the civic labs, and especially at least for peer learning and the elaboration of recommendations coming from both cities on the implementation of this collaborative methodology for monitoring human rights. So as the preliminary results, I will present a publication that we are disseminating, and that was the result of mainly the mutual learning workshops, as it contains the main recommendations that emerged from them there, explaining where they come from, what was the reflection behind these recommendations, and also giving some operational tips that were identified by the 2 cities. It's important to say, and this already connects a bit maybe to the impact of the action, because these recommendations will be useful both for the 2 participating cities, but are being disseminated so that other cities that are engaging in the same or in a similar process to bring together different actors in monitoring human rights could benefit from this. And especially all the 10 cities that will participate in the D-Side project that is starting now will be able to directly implement all these recommendations, as we are, let's say, improving our methodology for the D-Side project based on the work that we did through the Caring Cities project. So this sub-grant, micro-grant for us was very beneficial in order to start working with cities, testing our methodology and improve our methodology for the bigger project. So yeah, the title is Together for Rights, but how? Because I think this was the main question. So it's nice to see, yeah, let's monitor together rights, but then it was very, like answering how to do that is a big question. So the main recommendations are, first of all, to harmonize the meaning of key concepts among the different actors, to allow the alignment of expectations and actions towards the same objectives and targets. And this is because we discussed a lot with the cities that gathering around the table many actors means that these actors will very often have different terminology, priorities, and timelines. And this makes it difficult sometimes to really just to understand each other. So starting from a common understanding of keywords is very important for an effective collaboration on a shared foundation and towards common goal. So the main operational tips that were elaborated in this sense are to organize working sessions dedicated to identifying key terms and sharing each actor's understanding to facilitate the convergence towards a common meaning, and also the definition of a local glossary of these key terms that can be built in a participatory way. And also, like this work can be done building on case studies and best practices on how to deal with understanding and collaboration among different actors. A second recommendation is to involve the different stakeholders in all the relevant steps of the construction and implementation of the monitoring system to ensure ownership. And this is because like ensuring the shared responsibility and ownership in the system is essential, and like building the monitoring system from designing indicators to data collection and analysis through a shared process is essential to ensure the effectiveness of the system itself. And this also helps to build trust among stakeholders, which is an essential feature for different actors to work together. So we discussed a lot about how to build trust among actors that have different interests and then don't always, I mean, where trust is not always there for past experiences or things like this. So some operational tips that were identified that were, for example, organizing regular operational meetings, but also scheduling sessions for presenting preliminary results and discussing data interpretation as key moments in the project timeline, as well as defining the conditions for meaningful participation and clear tasks and deadlines for all the participants, as well as making sure that the actors participating in the creation and implementation of the monitoring system have a mandate from their organizations and are not there only for personal engagement. Another recommendation was about the need to map existing financial and knowledge resources of active or potential stakeholders to overcome financial restrictions. And this is because time and financial resources are always among the first concerns of both public, private, and associative actors when it comes to setting up and implementing a new project that does not respond directly to the main mandate of the organization or institution, such as a monitoring system could be. And while the collaboration among different actors is in general acknowledged as valuable, it is often not among the priorities, because priorities are often like productivity demands, managing emergencies, meeting tight deadlines. So creating a collaborative network of different actors can be also an opportunity for sharing resources. And here we talk both about material resources, financial resources, and knowledge resources. So let's say some tips to overcome this resources, shortage of resources, let's say, of the different actors, is to share material and knowledge resources. Map and integrate existing data sets, because when we talk about monitoring, we talk about data collection, and data collection is complex and expensive, but a lot of data already exists. So starting from what already exists and building on it, and then directing part of the grants and funding for services on related topics to the support of these monitoring. Then the fourth recommendation is to use horizontal collaboration and multidisciplinary exchange to identify the appropriate tools for data collection, aggregation, and analysis to ensure efficiency, transparency, and user-friendliness. And this is because some work to identify indicators and ways to monitor human rights at the local level, of course, have already been done. But what is very often lacking is a clear direction and guidance on how to effectively collect reliable data. And in this case, municipalities tend to turn to data experts to develop data collection tools without always considering the actual context in which on-the-ground collectors operate. And these on-the-ground collectors are very often workers from civil society organizations or municipal officials at the, let's say, in proximity level with the citizens. On the other hand, civil society organizations tend sometimes to collect data, but might not have the competencies and capacities, also in terms of time and resources, to elaborate and analyze them and make them comparable with other data. So this is why it's important to favor the multidisciplinary exchange on the development of user-friendly and reliable tools to manage data between data experts and data collectors on the ground. But also a useful mean could be to assess the quality of already used data collection tools, and so adapting these already existing tools rather than building and proposing completely new ones. And finally, another very important point is also to train municipal officials and service providers on how to collect data and how to use them carefully for reliable monitoring, because some participants were underlining how they would really like to do that, but they're a bit scared of data in some way and of the misuse of the data collected. And finally, but very important, is the last recommendations is ensuring transparency of the monitoring system. As transparency, of course, is an essential feature of good governance, and it is the basis for accountability. As well as one of the principles of a human rights-based approach and of a human rights city. It's essential, as I said already before, to build trust among participating actors, but it's essential to build trust also between the people and the city, or the people and the consortium who is leading this, with managing this monitoring system. And this can be this exposes the participating actors to direct evaluation from the citizens. And also it can be complex because it very often requires the elaboration of digital solutions to make all this data accessible to citizens. So it's not always easy to find solutions that are sustainable for the cities. So some possible solutions to this that have been found is the fact of existing and adapting already existing user-friendly local platforms that are already known and used by citizens, as well as another point on transparency, apart from the access to data, is building transparency on how to use the municipal budget in a way that is clearly linked to the monitoring of common indicators. So how to show that the organizations and service providers that are funded by the municipalities adhere and respect these indicators, adhere to the results of this monitoring about and to the improvement of human rights that is based on this. And finally, raising awareness among public officials about the importance of data supported, we said, decision making. So these were the main recommendations that emerged from the project. And as I said, they are very important for us to expand them through the project that is starting now. Now, passing to some qualitative evaluation, what we we collected some testimonials from participants, and the main aspects that were highlighted were improved capacities of participants, both from civil society organizations, municipalities, and academia, to discuss and collaborate with other local actors, as well as improved skills and knowledge for monitoring projects and policies. Then another important, something important that emerged from the evaluation was also the opening or the enhancement were already existing of the reflection on the localization of human rights actions, because both cities that participated in this project already have a human rights department and work on human rights, but they mainly do that at the international level through like cooperation projects or promoting human rights and peace at the international level, but they don't have let's say a structured reflection on how to localize this and bring human rights, a human rights-based approach to their local services. And then questioning local practices based on the other cities' practices. So making a sort of like comparison with the other city and try to like take good practices and learning something from the other city, let's say. We have here some voices from our participants. Unfortunately, these were collected after the first training. So I didn't
2
have.
minutes.
Yeah, great. Yeah, one person from civil society in Ghent said that the most interesting part of the project is that we can design more feasible projects and also monitor if the steps we are taking are really leading us towards our role. And in the end, it should really help more people to get access to human rights. My volunteer organization won't be able to use everything directly in our daily work, but I really think that what we learned here will help people working at the municipality, politicians, and our organizations to help people access more human rights. And here, if you can hear it, leave the floor to Pamela.
We learned a lot of new tools about the project results framework and how to monitor projects in social field. And we were 15 people coming from different cities and coming from academies and from civil society, and this improved our possibility to learn these new tools, which I think they are very effective, and I think that I will be able to use them since next Monday, when I will be back in my office, not only for social projects, but I think for many kind of projects.
Yeah. And then here I have just a few sentences from the final, let's say, evaluation of the project. I think, this one, for example, is from the University of Ghent, that says that the project has allowed Ghent University to consolidate spaces for collaboration with the city of Ghent in the promotion of human rights. And this is a case where, for example, the project brought the reflection on how to localize their common action and their the work of this Human Rights Advisory Board to the local level. And here again is a sentence from someone from civil society in Padova that again said that work again on human rights more on international level, and that says that she learned that there are many ways to get involved in human rights, and it's important to work together in a network to guarantee them. And then here again, a civil society organization who said that learning how to use the EU Charter in project writing was incredibly beneficial. And most notably, we valued the methods and tools we learned for monitoring and evaluation, which are already proving useful. For instance, we are currently drafting a project incorporating some of these instruments. So we saw some, even if it was like a short and small project, we saw already some impacts on participants, and we hope to be able to let's say, widen the impact through the D-side project that we are now working on also through the SER program. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Sorry. I also got the flu. Now I give the floor to Mathieu from the Fédération Française des Maisons de l'Europe, or French Federation of Europa Houses. Welcome.
Thank you. Can you hear me correctly and can you see my screen? Everything is good?
Yes.
Okay, so I will try enlarge. Okay, so thank you for your attention and allowing me to present the actions that the Europa houses have taken during the last 6 months to promote the European policies, allow citizens to better understand it, and how the European elections of June have changed some things in the way the institutions are functioning. First and foremost, I would like to present a bit the French Federation of Europa Houses, which is a network of 40 organizations. So as you can see in the map, we are implemented in all of France and affect all the territories, which allow us to have a really strong impact on the population and to impact all kinds of citizens from 0 to 90 years old. Our organization in 2024 is gathering around 40 organizations, so 39 Europe houses, more one regional association, which is gathering the efforts and the works of all European associations in a specific sector to work in the same way that the Europe houses are working, and one funding organization, which is also a member of our network, but is mainly funding our activities and helping the federation to coordinate all activities of those organizations. We have a network of around 3,000 members and some 500 workers who are involved in the everyday activities, and that's why I will develop after, because the funding allowed by the ECF had a direct impact on the coordination, but the French Federation has been able to do during the last 6 months. But I think what is really important and interesting, more than the coordination we were able to do, is the real impact it had on citizens and how it had been able to influence them, change the way they are understanding the European Union, and finally how all these activities were able to have some transformative impact. So I will present these actions in 3 main topics, which are gathering the diversity of actions which were done during this semester. First, I would like to put an emphasis on the conferences and seminars, which allow the Europa houses to better explain the transformative impacts and the changes that the European elections had on the institutions. And then I would like, in a second and the third part, to show other type of activities which put an emphasis on the diversity of means and the diversity of actions which can be carried to have an impact on citizens and try to impact and to affect them in different ways and not only by a formal way during conferences. So firstly, I will show you 2 conferences which were organized in Nantes, where is also the mother house of the French Federation. One was organized directly after the elections, and it aimed to discuss and analyze the results of the 2024 European elections. And then in September, A second conference was organized to reflect on the goals of the Hungarian presidency of the European Union. So the Europa House of Nantes was able to receive the ambassador of Hungary to present these goals and try to explain the Hungarian strategy from July to December 2024. What was really interesting during these two conferences was the intergenerational aspect because it gathered young students, but also middle-aged people and third-age people. So it really put an emphasis on special topics of geopolitics in the EU, and I think better allow French citizens to better understand the goals and stakes of European policies. In the same way, other conferences were organized directly after the European elections because it was a turning point in France. European elections were immediately followed by legislative elections because of the dissolution of our parliament, and it created a turmoil in the political life in France with a rise of far-right parties, which required all our associations to make more work to explain democracy, to explain the importance of European cooperation and the European international cooperation between the countries. So what was important to remember, especially during these conferences, was to remember the French citizens that the results in the European Union were not really the same than in France. There was a lot of difference between those two results, and so it was important to put an emphasis on the diversity and the difference that can exist between the European vote and the French vote. And finally, for these conferences, I would like to show two different conferences which were organized focusing more on specific topics. So sorry, it's in French because everything was done in French, obviously. But to translate it, these two conferences aim to talk about the immigration policy in the European Union and about media and the impact of AI. So it was focusing more on the specific sector policies, and it also allowed Europa houses, and in this case, especially in Côte d'Azur, the Europa House, to show how the change in the European Parliament and the fact that the influence of right parties was increased, changed this kind of policies. In the second part, so I would like to show also that our Europa houses didn't only put an emphasis on the conferences and seminars in the formal learning and education, but also use the diversity of actions to promote the European idea and the European cooperation. So one of those is the opportunity offered to French citizens to discuss directly with European deputies. In this case, the Europa House of Angers has chosen two European deputies, Christophe Clergeau and another, which I will present later. But in the same time, they also organize what we call a European coffee, which allow French citizens to discuss European policies and European functioning, but in a different way, in a lightened atmosphere, where they are allowed to share their opinion and the way of seeing the European Union without feeling being judged, which we've seen allow them to better talk about it and really change their opinion about it because they feel more free to discuss all these aspects and how this is a transformation in the European Union. We can also see that these actions take place everywhere, like the European House of Earth, which even organized activities in marketplaces, allowing people once more to talk about how they feel about the European Union in a lighter atmosphere when they're doing shopping, to talk about it, because it also allows to show how the European policies are impacting their everyday life and how it has an impact in everything we are doing all the days. And also in the European House of Cœur de Loire, which is a really recent organization in our network. It only has 1 year of existence. They organized in October 15 days of European meetings, which consisted in a total diversity of activities, with activities for young people, intergenerational, but also partnerships with political elected representatives at the local and national level, allowing them to get the support to, especially to promote European fundings in the local sectors, and which really help our organizations in their everyday work, because, as you know, political support is fundamental to organize all those activities, and without it, it becomes really more difficult to have a strong impact on citizens. Finally, as I said, what is really interesting is to promote the transgenerational meetings between citizens, because it can also allow them to have a distinctive point of view. Especially in France recently, young people are more influenced by nationalist and far-right ideas, which are being spread on social networks, and discussing this kind of topics with people who've lived during the war, for instance, or who have seen the development of far-right ideas in their countries in the past, is also a good way to counteract nationalist ideas, and to try to make a share between different generations in France, but also in the European Union when it's possible, like with the neighboring committees. You can see with the activities sharing with yours the Duty of Remembrance. It was an activity shared with different countries, allowing it to have also a different a comparison of point of views between France, but also different countries, and how they lived it differently. And finally, for the third and last part, we would like to show how we are putting in even more work to try to raise awareness among young people, because they represent for us the future of European Union, and without the support, it's really difficult to imagine what will become the European Union. So, as I said before, the European House of Angers organized another meeting with a European deputy, RHID, but this time with young people, allowing them to better understand the functioning of European institutions, but also to share the ideas, which can sometimes influence the European policies and can have a real strong impact on these representatives. And this is the kind of activities we are doing really regularly, I would say, as well as simulations, which are very effective to strengthen the comprehension and the understanding of European policies by young people, as did the European House of Dunkirk. So we also explain how Europe is taking a part in all activities in the everyday life of young people, and most of the time they don't know about what European Union is doing for them. They have some ideas, but they are discovering a lot of things and doing their day-to-day activities on the ground with French citizens and with the young people and kids is one of the best ways, we think, to have an impact on them and allow them to better understand the stakes of European policies. And it was even the same thing. I will not say what's more the same thing, but for first-time voters, having simulations, creating activities, and going to meet them in the places they are living in their everyday life is one of the best ways to allow them to take into consideration how the vote can have an impact at the European level. Finally, we've gathered some podcasts which talked about the transformation of European political life after the 2024 elections, mainly in French. Once more, I apologize for it, but because our public is mainly speaking in French, that's why it's this way. And so we have three Europe houses which participated to radio emissions or TV emissions to explain once more the impact after the 2024 elections, how the European Parliament has changed, and how recently the nomination of commissaries which will also have an impact on the policies which will be done in the next months and the next years. Finally, to talk a bit about the work that we've done at the national level in the national federation. Thanks to all those activities, to the discussions we had with the local associations, we were able to gather results that we used to create a kind of report about political changes following 2024 elections. This is some pages presenting it. It's still in constructions, and I think it will be finished in January. So you have the French version in this PowerPoint, but it's also planned to translate it in English and to send it to the European Civic Forum. If you want to disseminate it after, it's free for you for the English version. And the French version will obviously be used for the Europe houses to have an impact as the rest of the activities for the public. And we really mean to make it in a pedagogical way to allow having one other report explaining things that all our associations are already knowing, but allowing to use it for people who don't know about it and explaining it in a very simple way. That's what we are aiming to do with this report. So finally, you can see all the logo of the Europe houses which participated in these activities and the creation of this PowerPoint. And I want to thank you for your attention, and you can obviously keep in touch if you want it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mathieu. And last but not least, from Archie, I would like to invite Georgia to present their project.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Ja. Thank also to the colleague that spoke before me. They were all very interesting presentation and actually help continuing the reflection on what is happening in our own country, in Italy. My name is Giorgia Pintus. I work at Arci. Arci is an organization that was born in 1957 in Italy. We are a cultural and recreative association, and we inherited the tradition of popular and anti-fascist movement in Italy. And today we continue to work on democracy, rule of law, anti-racism, peace, and one of the activities where Archie is committed is asylum and migration and anti-racism, and that is the office where I work at. And that is also the context where we promote the Festival Sabir, which was the activity and the initiative that was supported thanks to the European Civic Forum. I will share a presentation to help me show a bit the results of the project. Okay. Okay, do you see the screen?
Yeah.
Perfect. So the Festival Sabir now is in its 10th edition. It's co-organized by Archie and other 9 organizations today. During this year, more and more organizations have joined our group and have contributed to the program and to the events. Each year, the festival takes place in a different city. Was founded in 2014 and was 1 year after the shipwreck that happened in Lampedusa in October 3rd, 2013, where more than 360 people lost their lives. And in that occasion, we decided to build this coalition to organize this festival as a moment of reflection, but especially as a moment where civil society from the Mediterranean, the Euro-Mediterranean region, could meet, one of the space where the Euro-Mediterranean civil society could meet to create new narratives and to promote a different approach to the deadly migration policies that were being implemented by Italy and by European Union itself. And now the festival again has reached its 10th edition, and we continue to feel that the work that we do in that context is important. Nevertheless, the challenges are several, because each year the Festival Sabir takes place in a different city. All cities and regions where the migration phenomenon is felt and is experimented and has different social and cultural effect on the territory. In this sense, also the economic and financial sustainability of the festival is also more difficult, if we want. And since one of the goals is to promote participation of organization, association, activists from all over the region, the support of the Civic Forum this year was especially important, also and especially in this sense. So to help us hosting more and more people and enabling them to come and exchange during these days. In general, as I already anticipated, the festival, since its first edition, has had several goals, which is, first of all, as I said, strengthen the exchange with civil society association in the region, create a space for mutual learning and exchange, also opening advocacy moments, because we also take the chance of the festival to invite members of the Italian Parliament, member of the European Parliament, member of the ministry, both in Italy and also other countries were relevant. So we also take it at a moment for the stakeholders to hear about what the grassroots and survivors and activists have to say regarding these topics. Is also a space for mutual care, because we see that in this threatening environment and with the repression and criminalization that is going on, specifically when we talk about, in general, civic space, as we have seen also from other presentation, but specifically when we talk about migration, which is one of the most polarized and instrumentalized topics in the past 10 years, we see that there is also the need to have space for mutual care, for exchange, and also to reason on our own work method to improve and to grow together, also changing narrative and changing goals and objective. And this is also what we try to do in this in this sense, hoping also to build also new initiatives to give space also for proposal and modification of the reality that we are seeing. So who are we talking to? We are talking to Italian association, members of the promoting organization, but also school and teens. So we, for example, this year we cooperate with 3 different schools in Rome. We spoke with social workers and professionals from different fields that are working on migration, like, for example, lawyers, legal operators, but also journalists, people from the cultural sector, so directors or artists in general. We, of course, enable the I mean, we're grateful for the participation, and we try to enable the participation of European networks and associations from other countries. So the festival has different levels, if we want, different objectives somehow. So also trainings and a moment of exchange, but also recreative and cultural moment. And we think that our added value is to put together all these different levels and to make, for example, a person that is working in one of the reception centers in Italy, give them the possibility to meet and to speak directly with activists from other region, etc. So this also is one of the challenges, but we also think is one of the added value of festival and moments like ours. And this year we met for the 10th anniversary in Rome. We had 4 days of events with the participation of more than 100 civil society organizations from the region. This is, of course, thanks to the participation of the network of the European networks like the European Civic Forum and other Euro-Mediterranean networks that encourage the participation of organizations. Some of them are also connected today and gave also a presentation before me. We organized more than 4 events during these 4 days, and in total we had more than 2,000 participants attending all the events in these 4 days. The events are separated into trainings for the different kind of professions, seminars and conferences. This year, 35 of them covering various aspects, screening and documentaries, art installation, and laboratories for teens. We know that we are not supposed to give numbers because we want to focus more on the qualitative assessment of the festival, but this was just to give a bit of a frame of what is the festival, Sabir, and of course concerts and music. Again, since this was also part of our qualitative assessment, which is also at the beginning, but we believe that we could give already some information. I would also speak very briefly about the topics that we addressed, because it's true that it's a festival about Euro-Mediterranean culture, and recently, in the past years, we focused more and more on migration and asylum, because it's one of the fundamental rights that is being under attack. But of course, everything is connected. So we spoke also about countering how to counter fascism, authoritarianism, populism, and in general inequality. We denounced the repression, and the criminalization of human rights defenders and of migrants. We spoke, of course, about peace, war, and we mobilized and we organized a moment of discussion about the Palestinian genocide. And we spoke with people and associations that are active at the border, monitoring the violence that is happening right to our doors. And we analyze and we prepare against the new regulation and legislation that will be coming in the next year from the new European Pact on Asylum and Migration. And we spoke about racism, and we try to understand at which level structural and systemic racism, both, for example, in sports, but also at institutional level, and how and which tools do we have to be allies and to fight against this wave, this new wave racism. And of course, we discussed democracy and shrinking space in the Euro-Mediterranean region. So to assess the impact of the festival, and we also wanted to thank the Civic Forum for asking us to reflect on the qualitative effect of our festival, because this is something that we were meaning to do for a long time. We decided to use of video and photos and some interviews, which are now being elaborated, and also a questionnaire to try to address some topic that we were interested in understanding how changed and if changed somehow the ideas of the participants, etc. The questionnaire is divided into 4 parts. It's translated in English, French, and Italian, and it's about, and first it analyzes the participation, so who is participating at the festival, if it's the first time or not, and from which organization, if they are attending as an individual, a personal point of view, or from on behalf of one organization or a network, etc. Then we ask them to evaluate the program and to tell us more about how they would like the program of the festival to be, and how the topics addressed and the methodology of the festival help them to change their mind on something. And then we evaluated as well the communication tools that we use, and also the sustainability, because in Archie we're discussing and trying to improve and trying to reduce, the environmental impact of the cultural events, such as the Festival Sabir. So we try to put in place some action in this sense, and we wanted to see how this was received by the participant. So one, I just since again is still is still ongoing, the questionnaire. I just took as a preliminary examples 2 questions that will help us addressing more some of the topic that I just anticipated. And we asked in general what the participant appreciated the most in the Festival Sabir. And the rating was that first, the Festival Sabir is a meeting place for association, networks, activists, and experts. Then the plurality of training that are offered, and a third, that is a space for socializing and enjoying cultural events that are all free, of course, such as concerts, art exhibition, and book presentation. And then a place for in-depth study and exchange through face-to-face meeting as well, because there is also a possibility to have close meetings and to take really advantage of the networking possibilities taking place, as it was also in other events that were described today. Because we also think that it's important now in this context to strengthen alliance and networking. And we asked about the program. The average rating was 4.39 out of 5, and we also, of course, asked about critics and suggestions to how to improve the program. And we had some first results that will help us to improve the way we address the topics. And we also asked about which topics they would like to see in the next editions, and etc. And then we asked how the festival how and if the festival changed the view on some of the topics that we covered, etc. We tried to group some of the first answers. When people said that there were actually some changes created by the participation in the festival, they say that was about mainly broadening the knowledge of social and cultural actors that are there in Italy, but also abroad. And we were very happy about these first results, because we also believe that it's one of the most important goals. And in providing new insights and in-depth study, thanks to the expertise of the panelists and of the testimonies. Sorry. It also gives the possibility to reflect on the work and to change a bit the approach while working at and addressing some of the topics. And also the opportunity to have more comparison with what is going on with the policies in other countries. We had some panels, for example, addressing the same topic and in different countries, which was also again the case in other events that were presented today, because we also think it's important to see how this common wave of authoritarianism and restriction of liberties is taking place in different cases. And in some cases, the response was that it did not really change the view in any way, but rather deepened or strengthened the knowledge or reinforced the ideas that were already there. And of course, some other things that were a bit more controversial, so not really a plus and not really a minus, but what I mentioned today earlier before, so the fact that some events were treated more from an underground perspective, and some other were trainings specifically targeting professional working on the field. So in some cases, it might be confusing, but we also believe that is also something that is important of our idea. We would like to keep. Maybe we will reflect on how to diversify a bit more in a more clear way the different goals of the events. Then we had some video recap and video interviews. I apologize because the video interviews were taken in original language, that was Arabic, French, English, and Italian, and then there was the interpretation translation in Italian that was put on the video. So I couldn't access before today to the original version, so I have.
Le message que je voudrais transmettre à
Tunisian Association for
Il messaggio che vorrei trasmettere
in
a
Tunisia
è che l'Unione Europea smetta di sostenere le dittature dei paesi del Sud. In Tunisia attualmente viviamo in una dittatura
I think we can, Giorgia. We cannot hear you while the video is playing.
Sorry. Okay, sorry about that. Yes, I was saying that unfortunately, again, it is in Italian because the original language was interpreted, but we are working on the original. We have the original version without the translation in Italian, and to the transcript of the interviews. And in general, in all the interviews that we had, we asked how they think the festival. What was the added value of participating at the festival, but especially what they think they brought into the festival and what issues they think that they should be taken into consideration in an event like this, and what is a message that they would like to stick after their participation. And so we will work on the testimonies and interviews and forwarded as soon as possible. And then we have the final recap video that I would like to share. It's not spoken, but just to give you again an idea of this year edition. There we go. Okay. I will stop here, but of course, if there are any questions, so I apologize again for not having the translation of the interviews, but we will try to do it as soon as possible. Thanks again for your time.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, actually, I would like to express my gratitude. Also, congratulations to all the projects. And on behalf of the European Civic Forum, I want to say how proud we are that with this small contribution from our microgrants, you have been able to carry out these important activities and achieve such significant impact. So well done. And now we go to the Q&A and debate, actually. So you can make your questions, but also if you just want to express your feelings, to make some comments, this is the moment to do so. So, and if you want, you can please raise your hand in the button that you will find on the bottom of your screen. Or you can also use the chat to to make your comments. Inigo is saying congratulations to all. So very interesting projects and activities, which I agree. Giorgio, you raise your hands. Yep.
Thanks. Sorry for taking the floor again. I wanted to ask to our colleagues, the one that presented before, but also the one that maybe didn't present but are carrying similar activities with their association, because sometimes we have the feeling that we stay on a bubble. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying, but it feels like we try to get out and to reach more and more people when we speak about certain thematics. So we try, for example, in our festival to have both, again, professional events, but also some events that are more open to a general public that is not highly specialized in the field, for example, but just to help to share awareness and to raise some topics that are maybe not in the agenda or that are in the public debate agenda, but are, according to us, in the wrong way. But we don't know very much if this is something that we would like to understand how to analyze and to assess if we actually are able to do so. Because, for example, concerts and book discussion, in our opinion, would help us to diversify a bit to the public. On the other hand, we are afraid sometimes that this public doesn't really communicate with each other. So this is some autocritic that we are trying to see how we can improve and how we can analyze if this is actually true, if it's a feeling, if actually it's getting different. The questionnaire was a first attempt to address these issues, but I wanted to ask if this reflection is going on, for example, in some of your association, and how you feel you can actually take out the topic that you all work on and to open it to the public.
And I think we have a question for you from Inigo. Taking in account the polarized society, which is the evolution and support from society in general, which is the evolution and support from society in general to the festival, meaning during these 10 years.
Yes, thanks for this question. That is actually what we were trying to understand. We have seen that, well, first of all, our approach changed, because at the beginning, it was more a need to exchange, to create a space to allow organization from the Euro-Mediterranean region to meet and to also provide support to them, because in some countries we know that the situation is way more difficult, for example, than in Italy, even though we are now again in a with a far-right government, but we know that in other countries different. So at the beginning was more this the objective. So it was more again auto-care moment. The more the year passed, the more we tried to open and to communicate with more the public. And in some sense, there was more support because people started to question the way that migration and asylum are treated in the public space. So we seen that there were a proliferation of events addressing migration with new authors. So the people that are speaking are actually the people maybe that are also involved in the phenomenon, and there are more and more space to do so. So people are more interested in hearing about that from other points of view, and the festival also benefited and contributed partially also to this effect. So we are very happy for this. Regarding reaction from the institutional side, we always had the chance to have institution, a member of the institution at the festival. Of course, in some cases it's more difficult, but also in this sense, we think it's good to continue trying. Thanks for the question.
Mathieu gave a suggestion that we will bear in mind in the next webinar, which is to have this Q&A after each presentation, some short 5 minutes, rather than in the end, because I understand that so many things were already presented. And Mathieu is also raising another interesting question, which is the fact that all these projects, I don't know if Mathieu, if you want to to speak yourself, but before you do so, these projects enabled a lot of cooperation between our ECF members. This was one of the most important things. Mathieu, I don't know if you want to clarify in your case difficulty you had in this specific.
I can talk a bit about it because when we planned the project at the beginning, when we proposed it to ECF and we had the results, it was asked from ECF to try to work with La Ligue de l'Enseignement, which is also in France and that we know. So what was asked was to work together because our two projects were kind of similar in some aspects, and try to make a common work and try to work together on these aspects. But it was a bit difficult at this time because of our respective agendas. As I said, I don't want to talk for them, but at this time they were changing their organization. They had a change of manager, I think, or something like this. And we were also going back from summer, and we're organizing our activity for the next year. So it was not possible to work together at this time in September because it was too late, and we all had different things to do. But as I said, we learned that the new manager was working for the French Federation before, and so we have a meeting in 1 or 2 weeks, I think, to try to see if we can have a partnership and work together for the next year or next project. I don't know for the moment because we didn't discuss it, but maybe there is a possibility to work with them, and we will see.
Great. Also for the other participants to understand that this is the second edition of this regranting scheme, and especially this year that we not only rebranded it as European Civic Micro-Grants, but lots of things changed, and we are also learning how to do it and how to better deliver all this information also to the participants. So thank you also for the laureates, for your flexibility, for your understanding. For instance, this webinar was not, in the beginning, it was not thought to be held, but you were all available to do it, and even doing it without having the final results, which is completely perfectly understandable. So thanks again for your patience and for your flexibility. And we are really, really proud that you have managed to do so much with such a modest contribution. I don't know if we have any other questions. Let me see in the chat. I don't think so. So if there are no other questions, I think we can
Sorry,
close here.
Sorry, Asier from Novak. I'm not able to find the raise your hands in the Zoom. No, only for not leaving the question that Georgia was doing 5 minutes ago. The question is shared from us, and I think that is the same. Like if we are working on a bubble and how to combine these different publics, etc. Just wanted to add more complexity to this question, thinking about presential activities with all what is happening. By the way, RT was present in our activity in Barcelona, and thanks for that. I hope that you enjoy it. And no, only to add another level of complexity, thinking about what is happening in the networks, in the social networks, etc., in the internet, which is like how to address this super complex world in this moment, and how to reach to the different publics in the better way is something that we are working on that too. So not answers, but like solidarity.
So we have a question from Joshua asking if the recording will be shared with the participants. Yes, we will share the recording, and also you can use a button with the AI companion button, and you can ask the AI what happened here, because well, it has been generating an automatic summary. But yes, the full record will be shared, and we have Erasmo that raised the hand. And I will unmute. Okay, please, Erasmo.
Good morning. Thank you so much. And sorry for not switching on my camera, but I'm home. Thank you so much for the presentation. I just have one question. I put it on the chat, but I think the message has not been delivered. So my bad. My question is, do you have already information on the 2025 microgrants in terms of deadlines? Maybe the information is already available. My bad in case it is, but yeah. Thank you so much in advance.
So we don't have yet a final deadline. We will be publishing it in the beginning of next year, so still in January. So I would invite you to go to our website and to subscribe our newsletter, because we will be announcing it through our newsletter. Anyone else? So if not, I think I will close the session here. Once again, thank you very much for your participation, for the ones that were attending and for the people that were presenting, and see you again in the next year. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye. See you next year.